Hello, good afternoon. So I'm on live on Instagram, but I'm also live on YouTube because just figure it's a nicer format to repost. So I don't actually never actually used my YouTube stream before. So I am going live on YouTube so I can post this elsewhere. But I wanted to hop on because I wanted to talk because it's cold and wintry and snowy out and all the things. I wanted to hop on to talk about something that I believe everyone should have tested. And I often test in my practice very frequently. So for those who don't know me, my name is Dr. Laura Pfeiffer. I'm a naturopathic doctor, and I focus on women's health and fertility. I have created the Period Passport online program where women can have their periods fixed by building the foundations. And I also am the creator of Her Time of the Month membership, which launches in January. So I wanted to talk about the one thing that I believe that everyone should have tested in their blood work, whether you are women's health, period problem patient, so endometriosis, fibroids, PCOS, painful periods, heavy periods, fertility patient. This is what I'm looking at all the time, and I'm talking to my patients about all of the time, and that is vitamin D. And so let's just kind of start with, first of all, what vitamin D is, how it's absorbed, and then we'll kind of talk about what the research shows with respect to women's health, fertility, and other things. So this isn't just for women. I believe that men need to have their vitamin D tested as well. And a lot of people who are outside all the time or they have an outside job feel like, oh, my levels are definitely not deficient because I'm outside all the time. And that's not necessarily true. And so there's a couple schools of thought is some people will have their doctors tell them that, oh, everybody is deficient. So if everybody's deficient, then we don't need to test and everyone should take vitamin D. That's also not a good idea because vitamin D, first of all, is a vitamin, but it actually acts more like a hormone. And it is also fat soluble. So what that means is you're going to store what you take. So it is possible to take too much and end up in a state of toxicity, which is actually really dangerous for your bones, for your kidneys. And so taking too much vitamin D is not a good idea. On the flip side, though, taking not enough vitamin D is a waste of money. So if you're told to take 1 or 2,000 international units, which is probably 1 to 2 drops a day, you might not actually be putting a dent in your levels at all, and you're kind of just wasting your money. And so it is important to make sure that you have a proper dose for you for a variety of different reasons. So I'm just going to hop into talk about really the reasons why we don't get enough vitamin D from the sun, why a lot of people feel like they are making enough vitamin D, but when in reality, they're actually not, just because they have access to the sun, just because they're outside. Now, obviously, I live in Canada. We have a lot less access to the sun, especially this time of year, but things like sunscreen, cloud cover, smog can actually impact your ability to make vitamin D from the sun. And so vitamin D is partly made from the sun by your skin, and then it can be partly absorbed by certain foods. There aren't a ton of foods that have vitamin D other than the ones that are fortified, and then it's a matter of our body to actually convert them to the active form. Also, if you have darker skin, then it is harder for your body to convert vitamin D from the sun. So just because you work outside does not mean you're making enough vitamin D. So it is important to test your levels. And I have said this to patients in the past that I've tested levels on patients where they're like, yeah, I'm outside all the time. My job is outside. And their levels are actually deficient. And other people who don't go outside, their job is indoors, in maybe a desk job in an office. And I assume, oh, okay, your levels are definitely super low. And then they come back and they're fine. So it's really hard to predict. And this is why you should get this test. Now, I am in Ontario, Canada. Here, it is not a test covered by OHIP, so it is not covered by your insurance. It may be covered by your extended health benefits, but definitely not covered by our Ontario health coverage. But it is a $35 test you pay for at Life Labs, and it is well worth the test. Now, getting into kind of why vitamin D is important. I mean, we all really have heard about, if we've heard about vitamin D, we've probably heard about it for bone health. Vitamin D is really important for keeping our bones healthy, but that's not what I'm talking about today. It's also really important for our immune system and our mental health. With the pandemic that's going on right now, there's actually been research into vitamin D and having adequate vitamin D levels equaling a lesser extensive severity of illness for what's going on right now. So that's really important as well. But I'm going to talk about it from a pregnancy, fertility, and women's health perspective because that's what I focus on with my patients who work with me. So first off, in fertility, I'm just looking at my notes from the research. Vitamin D status has been associated with reduced risk of pregnancy loss. In IVF patients, they found that higher vitamin D was associated with higher pregnancy and implantation rates. And in pregnancy, vitamin D is important to prevent complications, things like preeclampsia, things like gestational diabetes. High vitamin D levels or adequate serum vitamin D levels have been associated with reduced risk of complications. Also, in pregnancy, it's really interesting because women who had adequate vitamin D levels, their children had a reduced risk of asthma and allergies up to 3 years of age. And so making sure your vitamin D stores are high enough in pregnancy is really important as preconception and fertility. In women's health in general, vitamin D has been associated with a number of conditions. This is something I talk about a ton in my Period Passport program. This is something that we'll talk about in my Her Time of the Month membership coming up. But women's health in general, adequate vitamin D levels have actually been associated inversely with fibroid size. So if you suffer from fibroids, having adequate vitamin D levels. So basically the research showed that the higher vitamin D you had in your serum, the smaller fibroids you had. And so it's been associated with fibroids, it's been associated with endometriosis, it's been associated with reduced progression and improvements in endometriosis, reduced PMS, reduced painful periods. And so in Her Time of the Month, the monthly membership that I have starting in January, we focus on part of the education component of the membership is focusing on supplement education, getting you the information that you need, digging a little bit deeper than I'm talking right now into what this looks like and how to go about it. So how would you get it tested and how would you evaluate your levels and how do you increase your levels? We talk about adequate testing. We learn about conditions. I give my top tips to help you support your hormonal health. Just because it's natural does not make it safe. So when it comes to things like vitamin D, we need to make sure that we're adequately educated on how to take it and if it is the right supplement for us. And it's important to have that education. So on top of the fun stuff that we have in Her Time of the Month, the newsletter, I'm giving you all of the content that you need to really understand women's health, understand your hormones, make the choices that you need to make for your hormonal health, and decide what the next step is in your health journey. That's really the importance of it all. And then on top of that, the recipe booklets and guides are great to kind of kickstart your meal planning, to get you on track for eating healthy, to just give you new ideas on healthy recipes, how healthy recipes don't just have to be chicken breast and broccoli, and making them specific to the topic of the month. And so January, we are focusing on detoxification. We are talking about proper detox, how inadequate detox can impact your hormones, how period problems come from poor detox and what that looks like, my top tips to improve your detoxification, and so much more. But we're talking about all of that in my membership. If you want more information on that, head to the link in my bio. But if you have any questions about vitamin D, I will post this in my IGTV and you can comment below. Otherwise, guys, stay warm and enjoy the day.